Get my hair messed up there, huh? All right, everyone. This is my first time going live on Instagram and on YouTube and on Facebook all at the same time. So it is something new that I'm doing. Um, we're going to be doing a lot of lives and coming up here in about a week or so. I'll be doing a live stream every Tuesday and Wednesday during lunch hour, around 12:30, 12:45 to 1:15, 12:30 to 1, somewhere in there. I'll be doing those every week. All right. So be watching for those coming up in the future. All right. Be doing those. And it's our way of really investing in you, investing in your life, into your relationships, into your journey. A lot of people wonder, who are you? How did you get to where you are? Kind of what makes you tick, those kind of things. And so this is going to be one of those things that I can do for you. I have right in front of me a camera right here, and I've got a camera up there for my Instagram live. So I'll be looking at both cameras, folks, until I can figure out all the rest of this stuff down the road. Uh, Sorry about that. I'll be figuring this out down the road, what we can do and how we can serve you better. If there is something, by the way, that you would like me to talk about, a topic or some aspect of healthy living or relationships to cover, please let me know. Drop me a line and let me hear from you so that I can know better how to serve you. All right. So again, I've got a camera over here for my Facebook, for Instagram. I got my Facebook and YouTube right in front of me. Be taking a look back at both of those, if you don't mind. But here's what I really want you all to know: is I'm here on this particular live venue. A lot of people ask, Rick, how did you become who you are? What did you learn? How did you learn the things you've learned? And so I'm going to kind of tell you my story. All right. I'm going to tell you my story and the things that I have learned along the road, life's journey. All right. I think, you can just kind of go through life. And as you go through life, you can just experience it as someone who's passive, right? Or you can be active in life and create things and make things happen. Probably for the first, my childhood and my early 20s, I was one who was more passive, if you will. Things just happened and I kind of responded to them until I realized that if I want to become the man I want to become, to change my life and transform my life and make better decisions for my life, then I had better become more active in life. So, who is Rick Marks and Dr. Rick Marks, and how did I get to where I'm at? And what have I learned along my life's journey? All right, so here we go. So I am Dr. Richard Marks. My birth name was Richard Marks, Richard Darrell Marks. I'm a junior. I am the son of Richard and Barbara. And my father was my idol, named after him, and I always wanted to have a son. When I had a son, I wanted a son named after us, and I actually have that. My son Trey, Richard Darrell Marks III. And so I was born in Miami in 1961, and born to Richard and Barbara. And my father's side of the family, the heritage is Jewish, Ukrainian Jew. My biological mother's historical lineage was Lebanese Muslim. I remember my great grandfather, Ottaway. He died a Muslim. I remember him still well at age 59 today. I remember him. He was a wonderful old man, white hair, and just a wonderful guy. I grew up, valuing Middle Eastern meals on my mother's side of the family, and of course the Jewish side on my father's side of the family. And so I have this interesting cultural background. But I was baptized Catholic when I was born. That's not a complaint. And my parents divorced after 5 years of marriage. So I was born in 1961. They divorced, I think it was 1965. And so there were 4 children at the time of their divorce: Kathy, Rick, Donna, and Paul. I think the age at the time were, 4, 3, 2, and 6 months. And so we were put in my father's custody. So my father was having a relationship with a woman who he married. Her name was Edna. That was my stepmother. And so I was raised by my dad and my stepmother. And sadly, my father raised us to dislike, to hate my biological mother. Now, I'm not proud, I'm about to tell you, but I actually did. My father was my idol. I did whatever he told me to do, right? So I actually did. I didn't like her. I didn't want to be around her. I was raised not to. We were not allowed to call her mom or mommy growing up. We had to call her Mrs. Como. You imagine your own children calling you Mrs. So and so, your own biological children. I don't blame myself for it, because I just did what I was told to do. And my dad was my idol. I'm named after him. I'm his namesake, and he always let me know he was proud of me. Looking back at it, was a lot of manipulation and control. But as a little boy, you just don't know. You're so longing for your dad's love and attention. My father had an anger problem that he picked up from his father, and it was that part of the anger was Papa, my grandfather Isidore, really didn't know how to bond well. His marriage was not healthy, and he didn't know how to bond well, and he really was abusive to my dad. And my dad picked up that same abusive trait. I was around 10 or 11. My dad bought a cow prod and it would shock us. Now, I only think I got 1 or 2 shockings out of my childhood, but here's the thing. Even if you didn't get it, you always lived in fear of it. Got it? Even if you didn't get it, you always lived in fear of it. You see, when we walked out of our house there in Powder Springs, Georgia, I was born in Miami, but raised mostly in the Atlanta area. There was a big milk cartons. Well, there was a big milk carton where, not carton, there's big metal milk cans you see in the farms. It kept all the umbrellas and stuff. It always, that prod sat right in there, green handle. And so we didn't grow up in a healthy home. Always put down, particularly about my stepmother, always let me know I was never going to be good enough. You can never measure up. Why can't you be like everybody else, et cetera, et cetera. I always thought it was bad to be different. I always thought it was bad to be different, that I had to conform. Sadly, that went into my teenage years, because in high school, I could blend in with any group. I could hang out with the jocks, even though I wasn't an athlete. I could still hang out with them. I can hang out with the smart people. I got good grades. I was in ROTC, and I can hang out at the smoke. We call the smoke hole, which is where all the potheads were. The problem was I was a chameleon. You see, I could blend with any group, but I didn't have a group for myself, because I was always desperately wanting to be loved and valued. One of the things I've learned in my life is there's 4 questions that every human has to have answered early in life. Every person has to have these questions answered early in life. And here's the 4 questions. Do I have value? Do I have value? Do I matter? Do I matter? We all need to know that we have value, and we all need to know that we matter. Third one is, am I loved? Am I loved? Am I lovable? Am I lovable? Am I loved? And the 4th one is, do I have a purpose? Do I have a purpose? And when those 4 questions are answered early in life, and it has to be done by your parents, of course, when those questions are answered in a positive, affirming way, research shows those kids really do thrive. They believe in themselves. They believe in the world around them. They believe they can create change and affect change. They believe they matter. These kids tend to excel. Sadly, though, I went into my adult world not knowing if I valued, didn't believe I mattered, didn't know if I was lovable, and I really didn't know what my purpose was. You see, because it was never, those 4 questions were never answered for me in a positive. One thing I did know was I had no value and I didn't matter, and I wasn't sure if I was lovable. You got it? That was clear based on the messages overtly and covertly sent, all right, throughout our childhood. All 4 of us children walked out of that childhood damaged and wounded emotionally. Now, so I grew up in this really dysfunctional home, all right? and never believing I was good enough. My dad wants us to go out to sports. So when I'm still in Miami, age 8, I go out for sports. If he's there, he's putting me down, and sometimes he didn't show. Later, he wanted me to play baseball when I was in 8th grade. So I went for 8th grade baseball at Riverwood High School there, and he never showed to a game. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of living a life trying to get someone to love me and notice me and care about me. And one of the things I've learned in my life journey is this: if you love someone, don't assume they know it, because they don't. You must tell them, and you must show it on a regular basis. Love is an action for sure. It's also a feeling. You got to act in loving ways, but I've got to feel the love. And if I don't feel the love from you, people will question whether they're actually loved by you. You see, we need to feel the love. And you've asked me today at age 59, did my dad love me? I'd tell you yes. However, ask me this question: how do I know he loved me? I really don't. I never felt it. Never felt it from him. I was always jumping hurdles, you see, always jumping hurdles, because I so desperately wanted to be valued and to know that I mattered. I wanted to be good enough. I wanted to know that I was adequate and that I was lovable. Sadly, the message I always picked up was you weren't. And because we all are looking for those 4 questions to be answered, what did I do? I try to get them from other people. All right. I would draw close to teachers. And there were some teachers who basically let me know verbally and through their behavior that I mattered, that I had value. I think of men like Commander Newman and Chief McLary, my ROTC instructors. Those 2 men would correct me when they saw me in my brokenness and when I was doing dumb things as a kid, but they were always there for me, always supported me, always encouraged me. Mrs. Collier, one of my teachers, Mrs. Taylor, who called me her son. You see, if your parents aren't there to fill that need for you because they can't out of their own brokenness, I've learned that God will put other people in your life to give it to you, to help you get what you're looking for, to help you to get those needs met, because we do need those things met in our lives. So I go through my childhood really not having those needs met. Value, always striving for it. So what did I do? I became an overachiever. Yeah, beta club, high grades. Why? Well, I figured if I kept performing and being the good kid and doing everything I was told, then at least if I kept jumping the hurdles, right? If I keep jumping the hurdles, then maybe I'll be good. Maybe I'll be loved. Maybe I'll be noticed. Only problem was every hurdle I jumped, there were more hurdles to jump. But I didn't figure this out till later. So eventually I joined the U.S. Navy as a chaplain assistant in 1980 just to get away from my home. I don't want to be there anymore. I'm kind of a lost soul. I don't know what to do. I went to college for my first year, didn't want to be there. And so, I turned to faith in God. And so I really felt that God wanted me to go in the Navy. Best thing I ever did, by the way. So I joined the Navy, got stationed in Jacksonville, Florida. All right. And just because I was 19 years old, chronologically an adult, doesn't mean emotionally I was one. Looking back at my life, I've learned a lot about the idea of maturity. Maturity has nothing to do with intellect. In other words, you can be a very brilliant person, but emotionally very immature. And my dad, he's been dead 37 years. He died at age 47 from a massive heart attack. At age 47, when he died, he didn't take any of his wealth or anything with him. What he did take with him was broken relationships with all of us. And I remember when I stood by his bed and watched him die, I thought to myself, did I matter? Did I matter? And I made a decision there that I will never, ever, ever, ever live my life in a way that tells people I don't matter or they don't matter. In particular, if I get married and have kids one day, my kids will always know that they matter. But because my father, when he died at age 47, emotionally was a teenager, an adolescent, my father then could not raise his children to be healthy, mature adults because he wasn't one. In other words, you can't raise your kids to be something that you're not. You only raise them to be what you are. And if you're not a mature adult, you can't raise your kids to be mature adults. So I recognize that if I don't change me, if I don't grow up emotionally, then I'm not going to be able to raise mature kids one day. But here's the other kicker: I won't have a healthy, mature marriage either, because in order to have a healthy, loving marriage, it requires two healthy, mature adults. And I wasn't. I was emotionally a child when I got married, 1984, to Luella. Met her in Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I currently live. But I met her in Jacksonville, Florida, which is where the U.S. Navy stationed me at Naval Station Mayport. I was a part of a destroyer squadron staff, and which basically meant, since I worked for the chaplains on a Desron staff, basically our congregation were the sailors and the families of 14 different ships. All right. And it was so, since we were in a chapel setting, our congregation were those sailors and families on those 14 ships. The primary ministry of the chaplains that I worked for was counseling. And it was through those times at Desron 12, working for the chaplains there, serving the families on those ships, I got a real interest in psychology and counseling, which then led to me eventually going on and getting my bachelor's degree, which then eventually led to getting a PhD in counseling psychology, a master's in ministry therapy, and a master's in religious education, and a BA in psych from University of North Florida, and then my other degrees from seminary, a seminary out in Texas. And so people are like, oh, you got a PhD, 2 masters, a BA. I'm an LPC, clinical fellow with the AAMFT, CIA, UFO, EIO. I'm proud of my degrees, folks. I really am. I worked hard for them. I did very, very well. However, I will admit to you that a part of that drive was a sense that I wasn't good enough still, that I didn't matter. And if I kept jumping hurdles, you see, even in those early 20s to mid 20s to late early 30s, I was still, a part of my soul was still looking to be good enough, was still wanting to have value, was still wanting to matter. I find that true today. When our message in life is that we're not loved, we're not lovable, people basically go one of two ways. And this is, yes, I get we're being kind of 1,000-foot here, and I get there's other nuances to all this, but probably one of two ways. They either say, you know what, I'm done, and I don't care anymore, and they just kind of quit. They give up. They exist in life. Or they do what I did. They strive harder. They become overachievers. Where this one says, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough, so it doesn't matter anymore. So you turn to alcohol or drugs or pornography or whatever you do to medicate the pain. You just exist and you live in craziness. I didn't do that. I became an overachiever. So I just kept jumping hurdles, more and more hurdles. And the more and more hurdles I jumped, the more and more I thought I'd get love and attention and acceptance, the better I thought I'd be. But guess what I found out? For every hurdle that I jumped, are more hurdles. And I met my wife in 1981 in Jacksonville. I got stationed at Mayport, December of 1980. Meet her sometime in 1981 at a church event. And we eventually got married in 1984. My wife, Luella, we've been together 37 years. Yes, they're the best 37 years of her life so far. All right. However, she grew up in an alcoholic home with a lot of craziness and a lot of abuse as well. So two very broken, wounded people found each other. And we did love each other. We didn't know how to love well, that's for sure. Her nor I. And so we had our faith. But let me tell you something. That ain't enough. It isn't. Just because you have faith, you got to have love. And you got to know how to love well. Because the greatest disease is love. And we didn't know how to love well. And so we'd hurt each other. We did love each other, but we didn't know how to love well. So we'd hurt each other. We would step on each other's feelings, and we didn't know how to communicate well. I didn't, for sure. And if I didn't get my way or get my needs met the way I wanted, I'd sulk, I'd whine. I didn't really endear her to me. And so we started off in those early years of marriage loving each other, but really we had a lot of baggage and issues to work through, but we didn't know how. It's nothing I learned about life. Most people's struggles in life isn't the fact that they have baggage. You can go a lot, you can do a lot of therapy and learn why you are the way you are. You can learn why you are the way you are. But here's what I learned. Just because I learned those things doesn't mean I know what to do different, how to create a difference, because I don't have the skills or tools or the knowledge to create the difference. And so one of the things I learned in my journey professionally from Dr. Lori Gordon and others in the field is if you don't teach people what to do different, they can't get anywhere different. That people need the skills and tools, and you can't assume that people have the skills and tools. You see, one of the things that we do in our work with RelateWell is designed to tell people not just about, but how, what to do different. Don't do it this way, do it this way. All right, we teach you how to communicate, how to emotionally regulate. We teach you how to bond and connect. That's related to some core relational needs. And if you learn what to do different and how to do it, the actual skills, then you have the ability to create what you want and create the marriage that you want and the family that you want. And I would argue you have the ability to become the person you really want to become. See, I wanted to be a healthy, mature adult. I just didn't know how to do it. So people came into my life, teachers, mentors, father figures, and those people started giving me the things that I didn't have and that I didn't know what to do different, right? They taught me what to do. One of my greatest teachers and mentors was Dr. Lori Gordon. I hold her with high esteem and honored that she would choose to allow me into her life the way she did, her and her husband Morris, Rabbi Gordon, and invest in me so that I could go pour and invest in others. And they taught me how to bond, how to connect, how to emotionally regulate in a way I've not learned in any other setting. I've grown a lot since my early years of marriage. I really started changing myself in those first 9 years of marriage is when I decided I better do something different. And so I started to go learn. And so I learned the skills and tools of what to do different. Here's another thing I learned. Just because you have a PhD and 2 master's degrees, or you're a rocket scientist, or you're a pretty brilliant person intellectually, that doesn't make you mature. It doesn't make you a mature individual. Maturity has to do with emotional development. In other words, you could be 59 years old, like I am, but still emotionally a child. You could be a rocket scientist, emotionally an infant. And so one of the things that I learned along my journey is, well, what is an emotionally mature person? Well, what is an infantile adult? What is a childish adult? What is an adolescent adult? And what does a mature adult look like? Well, we write that out in our work. And we clearly delineate what those are. Why? Because our work is in the area of helping people become healthy, mature adults. Why? Because mature adults can create mature relationships. Immature adults can't create mature relationships. It's not rocket science. It's pretty simple. And so I learned the skills and tools that help me become a mature adult. Why? Because I want to love my wife maturely. I want to love my kids maturely. I want to love and respect others maturely. Those that are watching, my hope is and prayer is that you don't see a perfect person, but I do hope that you see a mature person. And so my work was in the area of helping people become healthy, mature adults. Why? I wasn't one. I needed to become it. Now I can tell you that I did because my wife says I have, all right? So I'll yield to her and she says I'm there. Am I there the way I think? No. Am I there? Am I where I want to be? No. But guess what? I'm not where I used to be. That's the one thing about maturity. It is to live a mature life. You know your strength and you know your weaknesses, and you're okay with both of them. Why? Because you don't have to be perfect. You don't put on yourself pressures that are unnecessary. So in my transformation, looking in the mirror, changing myself, reading, learning best practices, going to personal development, over the last 25 years of my life, in those early years, four words kept emerging for me. And these four words that kept emerging were really, they weren't academic. They were words that showed up in my head about how did I want to be as a way of being in a moment. I now call these four words, which is the way I regulate myself by, I now call these the four protectors of an us. Us is the relationship itself. And how do you protect a relationship? By living a life of goodwill, by living a life that is respectful of others and respecting oneself, living a life of humility and empathy. That's right. Goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. I call them the four protectors of an us now. Those are the ways I began to regulate myself. In other words, because I was an unhealthy, immature person early on, I had to ask myself, is what I'm doing right here, right now, is the way that I'm treating my wife, is it goodwill? If it wasn't, then I knew it was ill will, and I would stop myself from doing it. Why? Why would I want to treat the woman I love with ill will? It doesn't make sense. I want to treat people with goodwill. What is goodwill? It's benevolence towards another person. It's no matter what I do, I seek your best. I don't seek to hurt you, harm you, or destroy you. I only want what's best for you. Why? Because I care about you. Because I care about you. And so I always ask myself, is the way I'm treating others is a goodwill? Secondly, am I being respectful? Am I being respectful? And I knew if I was being disrespectful, I needed to stop. Because I know that loving, caring people always treat people with goodwill and respect. Now, you can't have goodwill and respect if you're not humble. And here's what I've learned about humility. Humility is actually a powerful way to live life. Weak people cannot live a life of humility. Immature people cannot. Only mature people can live a life of humility as a way of being. And lastly, empathy. Am I sending the message that I don't care? You see, I've learned that you never send a message to any relationship of yours that you don't care. Because if you keep sending it enough and people figure it out, they're going to walk out of your life. Why? Because you keep sending the message, I don't care. Never send that message. So I began to regulate my life by those four words. And those four words allowed me, if you will, to have the guardrails up so that when I treated you and interacted with you, Luella, my kids, anyone, particularly those closest to me, that I knew for a fact I was being loving. Why? Because love always treats people with goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. And that's how I wanted to be. I didn't want to be known as somebody who was immature, selfish, reactive. I want to be someone who's known as steady, thoughtful, caring, competent, and strong. That's right. People who live a life of humility are very strong people. People who live a life out of pride and reactivity are actually very weak people. Immature people don't act that way. And so I began to use those four words that kept showing up in my head as a way to regulate myself so that I could always treat everyone in a healthy, loving, caring, mature way. And I just began to implement these skills, these principles. Over time of my marriage, I began to realize how selfish I was and how immature I was. And I started to fix it. And here's the neat thing. As I learned these skills and tools, and I began to grow up and emotionally, if you will, and mature, I was able to teach my kids the very things that I was never taught, so that they could become healthy, mature, and loving and caring adults. Why? Because I want them to be that. I want them to be the best version of themselves. They've all done pretty well. They really have. My wife, I was a stay-at-home mom, worked harder than I did, that's for sure. and she homeschooled them, and all my kids have excelled. They all have graduate degrees, and forging their way in the world. Proud of all of them. But what I'm most proud of is they're pretty healthy, mature adults. They handle things very differently than I used to handle things when I was their age. And so I'm proud of that. And I'm grateful that Luell and I were teachable. We were teachable. You know, the man that's sitting in front of you today, 59 years old, 37 years of marriage. I have a very strong, healthy us marriage. Not perfect by any stretch of me, but we're an us. We love each other. We cherish each other. We encourage each other. We support each other. We don't put each other down. Why would I put down the woman that I love and cherish the most? That doesn't make sense. You know, I didn't get married to be miserable. I got married to have a wonderful, loving, caring. But in order to be married and have a wonderful, loving, caring relationship, you got to be healthy, mature people to create that, both of you. We say it this way, it takes two to make it, not only one of you to kill it. And so it really has to do with how do you want to live your life, the choices you make, moment by moment by moment. And after all these years, we have helped many, many, many couples. Some of the young couples that I've helped, I've actually grown deeply fond of and keep up with them. Love them a lot. Kind of like my own in my own heart. You know what I mean? They were just stuck and they didn't know what to do and they didn't know how to get unstuck. And God has put people in my life to be like a father to, and Luell to be like a mom to, and us to be like parents to. And as he did for us, me and Luell, he put people in our lives to fill the gap that our parents could not fill. And we get to go do it for others now. So 37 years of marriage, 59 years old, strong marriage, not perfect, very mature though. We are an us. To the best of our ability, we serve people and live with people and treat people with goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. To the best of our ability. Why? Because when you do, you're going to touch a soul and that person's going to feel valued. They're going to feel like they matter. They're going to feel that they have worth. They're going to feel loved and lovable. And they'll know that they have a purpose. They just have to find what that purpose is. And you can live that out by the way you treat people every day. And when you do, those 4 questions can be answered in their life. They'll have to believe it, of course. But once they embrace the truth of it, your influence in their life will go to the day they die and possibly even beyond. So that's me, part of my journey. Thank you for taking time out to listen, to hear what I had to say, who I am. And I hope maybe some way it gives you some clarity around what I'm about and who I am. And so blessings. You want to learn more about our work, by the way, go to relatewell.us. Our core program is actually there. And you can purchase that and learn the fundamental skills that relate well. All right. A lot of some teaching videos at our YouTube channel. So, and I'm learning to use Instagram for the first time today. So I have a young lady that I know who uses it extremely well. You know, though she moved to Germany with her hubby, I've got to pick her brain and learn from her. So anyways, you guys have a phenomenal, phenomenal day. And thanks for taking a little bit of your time just to kind of hear this story and some lessons that I've learned through my life's journey. Blessing everybody. Bye-bye. Now,